Welcome to Healers with Humor.
Where healing meets heart and a whole lot of vulnerability.
We're your hosts, Candice and Shelly, two healers navigating life, love, and all the messy moments in between.
Because we believe that healing isn't just about crystals and meditation. It's about embracing the chaos, learning from the challenges, and finding joy in the journey.
Each week, we'll share real stories, insightful conversations, and maybe even a few awkward truths just to help you navigate your own healing path.
And guess what? This season, we're bringing in special guests to share their wisdom and inspire even more connection.
So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, or just settle right in and get ready for laughs, lessons, and a whole lot of light. This is Healers with Humor. Welcome back, Bright Lights, to Healers with Humor, Season 2, Episode 12, Auras to Altars, Tools We Use to Support the Healing Journey. I'm Candice.
And I'm Shelly.
All right, everyone, we're here today to talk about all of the things that we use to support our healing journey. A little bit deeper, things that we haven't really talked about yet, but we want to kick off the episode with a candle, a card, and a favorite thing. So the candle for today, again from Soul Love, is unity. The mantra is, I am one with all of divine creation. And so the intuitive hit I got on this one was around when healing feels isolating. The tools that we are talking about today remind us that we're not doing it alone, right? We're working with ancient wisdom and universal energy in our own divine essence. And then the card for today is Divine Magic. When what I love is the oracle deck that I was guided to use was called Angels and Auras Oracle by Radley Valentine and Dougal Fraser. So I thought that was appropriate for our conversation today around auras to altars. So this is really just a reminder that there's a powerful, right, unseen current always supporting us, and that our healing isn't just practical or personal, but it is divinely led. And I actually didn't have a favorite thing for today, but my friend Shelly does.
I did. So everybody knows I love books. And while everyone doesn't know how hard I've tried to work to be able to see auras, which I still do not, I do really appreciate being able to hear about auras when working on folks. But Mystic Michaela has a book called What's My Aura, where she talks about colors, what it means, and embracing your unique energy signature. And that's an awesome resource for anybody trying to dive deeper into auras and specifically colors and what they mean, your personality.
Yeah, I love that. So I love the Mystic Michaela. And I've actually had, so she has a podcast called Know Your Aura. And that's actually where I learned a lot about being an empath, and aura colors. To your point, I had never really heard about that before. And she has just a beautiful gift that she has really cultivated over the years. Um, and I've had my aura read by her a few times. I actually met her in person, which was very fun. And my aura when I was younger was blue and yellow, but as I've gotten older and I've healed, my blue was really hiding the indigo, but I'm indigo yellow. That's my aura. Those are my aura colors. And that combination is actually why I named my business Indigo Soul. So it's
I
a
love that.
combo of indigo and yellow. Because basically, I'm an intuitive perfectionist with a spreadsheet for my emotions. Right? That's the indigo and yellow. So one part of me wants to organize the entire healing journey, and the other part is crying in the background because it all just feels like it's too much. So yeah, it's quite an interesting combo. But my indigo side is really about, right, the emotional. It's like an intuitive tuning fork. And, I've talked a lot about on this podcast about how I absorb emotions all of the time, like a little human sponge. And the indigo is really what allowed me to understand that on a deeper level. That's what I was doing. That's what that color means. And the again, Mystic Michaela really helps you understand how to work with that energy because it's not something to look at in a negative way, right? Um, and I used to think it did make me too sensitive, but there's nothing wrong with me. It's the way that I am, and I get to embrace that. And so I see that now as one of my greatest gifts. And the indigo energy really allows me to connect with people on a soul level, right? That's why I love my business so much. Even when they don't have the words for what they're feeling, I can really tune into that, and that's really powerful. And that's purpose, which is what we talked about a couple episodes ago. And my yellow side is the cheerful, detail loving, right? Overachiever
Oh.
who never met a spreadsheet she didn't like or a label maker. And I love systems and routines and productivity. But, that also means that when I'm in my indigo and I'm meditating, my yellow is, like, chirping in the background going, "Are we gonna organize those crystals? Are we gonna put them by color? Are we gonna make them by chakra? Are we gonna let them tell us where they wanna be?" But it's all it really is all of the things. Those bringing in the indigo and the yellow together is what, really brings structure to my work. It keeps me grounded, and it allows me to follow through, right, when things feel hard. That's when the yellow kicks in. But knowing your aura, understanding your aura really does matter when you're on the healing journey, or at least it has for me. It really, again, helped me understand my energy strengths and sensitivities and really how to care for myself. One of the things that Mystic Michaela talks about from a color perspective is how they impact your body. And so yellows typically have some digestive issues, which I definitely have. And that
Oh.
was something that was interesting, right? Because yellow is also right the solar plexus, which also runs all of the digestive. So it was just interesting. Um, and I also see, see auras just from an energy perspective, right? They can be I don't see auras like Shelly said, but they can be, right, dull or fuzzy or, too bright. And from a energy clearing standpoint, Shelly and I can both work with auras, and help clear and balance, right, those auras if they're, a little bit frayed or have a little bit too much going on. So, Shelly, do you want to talk to us a little bit about? I'm gonna we'll make a pause here. Do you want me to jump right into meridians, or do you wanna talk about auras a little bit more?
Oh, I'll talk about or I haven't talked about them yet.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll cut that part out.
Okay.
So I'll just make us pause. Alright, Shelly, so we know you don't see auras like I don't, but talk to us a little about, auras for you from your perspective.
Yeah, so in trying to understand them, obviously I've mentioned that I've read a few books and I've desperately tried to see them by putting up the white piece of paper and softening my gaze, and I don't see shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
I see white.
desperately want to. Yeah, I see white. And, I've only ever met one person who actually saw, the aura color of people, and it was fascinating because he didn't understand it, right? So we actually made him very uncomfortable
Mm,
as he was trying to interpret what that was telling him, but it was fascinating because, there are people who use, photography to take pictures of your
mhm,
aura,
yep,
and meeting someone and chatting with about how they see them was fascinating. So of course the scientist in me, right, tries to understand, what it like is that a real thing, right? And it totally is, but it's your human energy field or biofield, right? It's multi-layer field of energy that surrounds your physical body. And each of the levels also corresponds to a chakra. So I think that's important as we've talked about chakras and gone in detail there. Certainly, it brings the energy we need and filters out a lot of the energies that we're exposed to. And they also correspond the different layers of the auric field, which there are seven,
yep,
correspond to your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual states. So that's your body's energy field, right? Your health, your thoughts, your mood. the vibrancy of the colors that you mentioned.
Mhm.
And what's fascinating for me, again, just to be clear, I don't see them with my eyes, but I ask myself, what if I asked myself, what color is Candace's aura?
Yeah.
I would hear what the colors are because
Yeah.
that's more my stronger gift. But what is fascinating for me as I've also say tested this out and kind of understood more about my own family and friends is that people that are more than 2 or 3 colors to me are fascinating.
Ah, yes, you can have
Yeah,
multiple
so
colors.
yep, so my nephew is one of the people that has so more colors than the average person, and it's just, interesting for me, right, as I tap into my own intuition and I start to, have those conversations with my family members and understand, right, it's why we have different personalities. It's why people are attracted, to each other. But for me, when it goes to work, right, the auras are represented by, colors and right, pets have them,
Mhm.
people have them, plants have them, which I think is fascinating. But it really helps someone who is a healer, right, understand to your point about the solar plexus, where to work, but also who you are.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times, right, we're more familiar with hearing that, astrology,
Mhm.
I'm a Leo, and
Yeah.
this tells you everything about me. And it doesn't, right? There's so many other pieces.
Yeah.
Sure, astrology is one piece to understand parts of it, but so is the aura and the colors. But also, um, that really corresponds right to health,
Mhm.
which as healers, right, we're trying to get health of the mind, body, and spirit
Yes.
back to a healthier place. So I
Yes.
do check. For me, I check my aura. I check my chakras daily, but I also check my auric layers to say,
Mhm.
is there something that I need to be aware of? And while I may never see them, I definitely entertain myself by playing a little game of I can hear your aura colors
Yeah, that's
with those
funny.
people who have given me permission, of course.
Yeah, I love it.
So, yep, just another way to kind of check your body's health, right? And to
Yeah,
see how your energy's flowing.
absolutely.
Um, and then as we get in and talk about meridians, right?
Mhm.
We both work with those. So a meridian is just a pathway of energy channeling through the body, helps you restore a proper flow and balance.
Mhm.
Typical in Chinese medicine, acupuncture, reflexology, and there are 14 of them. So I actually check them for myself and clients, and I know you do as well with some of the work that you do.
Yes,
A reflexologist and an acupuncturist are really good practitioners to really dive deep into meridians.
agree.
And so I think you and I touch on them, but not necessarily really dig deep into understanding them. Whereas your feet tell people way too much of your business. Um,
Yep.
but working with meridians, right, is one of the ways they work with your health and your physical issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anything that you wanted to make sure that we chat about in meridians and how you work with them?
Yeah, so to your point, I'm not an expert by any stretch. And really, I think I'd probably heard about meridians back in the day, just like chakras. And again, it was like, how am I gonna understand all of that information? But I really learned it through body code. So there's a whole section in body code around meridians. And we have the main meridians, and then we have extraordinary meridians. Uh,
Mm.
and really, they're to your point, their energy that cycle through the body, but they're really associated with different organs and glands, and even your teeth, which is really
Oh.
interesting. Yeah. Exactly. But I've seen shifts happen really quickly when balancing the energy of a meridian. So I don't typically have a client that comes to me and says, my governing meridian is off or my conception meridian is blocked, right? They don't know that.
Mm.
But as we go through a healing session and we have kind of an overarching thing that's going on, that'll show up as one of the, an imbalance if it is. And their subconscious will let me know that. And I was, working with a client recently who had been in a car accident and their yin linking meridian was imbalanced.
Mm.
Again, not something that, I'm gonna dive deep into with a client, but it shows up and it's imbalanced for a reason, right? And so we cleared it and balanced it. And then recently on myself, um, it came up when I was working on a session for myself around chronic stress. So that's something that I've really been focusing on lately. I didn't realize since I've been out of the corporate world for so long, I still didn't realize how much stress my body was carrying. And so chronic stress apparently is a thing for me. And when I
Oh.
was working on that, it came up around a meridian that was imbalanced, and it was the triple heart warmer. Again, I don't know a lot about these things, but it was imbalanced, and it was actually I have some swelling in my legs and my feet that's super annoying, and that was one of the things that was imbalanced and was going to help with the swelling and the um, yeah, so meridians are again just, h- energy centers or healing. They actually flow through the whole body. But they can knowing and understanding them and ways to clear them can really um have a shift in your body when you understand where they are. But I 100% agree. An acupuncturist or reflexology are going to be um really way more focused on that. Or even what's the other one where they put the little needles in you? Is that
Wait, there's
acupuncture?
pressure and acupuncture. So
Okay, yeah,
acupuncture is the
the
needles.
needles. Yep. So yeah, those definitely are working much more deeper with the meridians. So yeah, just another layer, right, of things that we can look at and work on. And then this isn't necessarily a body function, but there are things that we can do around altars. And so, again, not an expert by any stretch, but they are. I do, I do have one. Again, not the expert, but it's a really sacred space for me. So I have one in my office, and I put just items that mean something to me on there. So there's not it's I'm gonna say it's a little hodgepodge. So I have some crystals, I have some ancestral things on there. I have lots of candles because what's an altar without a candle? And then that's also where I keep, like, my Palo Santo and my feather for, when I'm doing some sage or smoke. And just some things, over the years that friends have given me. So it's kind of a hodgepodge, but it's my sacred space. It's where I'm gonna sit when I wanna get quiet, and, I always have my journal close by as well because there's usually information that comes in when I'm sitting there, but it's a lot of reflective work. What matters most for me is that it feels personal and that it's sacred, and it's like an energetic anchor, that just helps me, kind of feel connected. But I know that you do a ton of work with altars and you love them and they bring you joy. So tell us all about your process.
Yeah, so, I have to laugh at the things that I've experimented with, but one of the like the auras, but for the longest time, I actually avoided altars
Yeah,
altogether.
I did too.
If I think about, my perception of what an altar was for, it was, something in a church or something
Mhm.
that you were worshiping, which is not at all how I look at altars today.
Yeah.
I really look at it as like a great reminder to either something that I'm working on, i.e., trust is there right now again for the 80th time, or something that I'm hoping to like manifest, right? So I look at it more of a good reminder to what I'm working on at the time or what I'm saying it is important to me. So as somebody who did avoid them, I think I have 4 going right now. I don't change them all, and there are times where, I'll just call it, changed it each week, one in my home and sort of been intentional to your point, right?
Mhm.
Decided that this week the energy that I need to be reminded of is, you know, whatever, and really focused on bringing items, together,
Yep.
that for that purpose. But if I think of what I have right now, right, a lot of it is certainly in my treatment room. I have one that is more about my clients, healing candles, crystals to align with my spirit guides and teams, and really the elements and masculine and feminine.
Mhm.
So really built for an altar for healing and treatment. I have one that kind of greets anybody who comes into my home, right? Grateful
Yeah.
for their friendship, grateful for their presence, but also lots of crystals to help clear energy, right? As people come in
Yeah.
with different energy. I have one on my dining room table that really reminds me of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And I kind of put it together because it's pretty.
Yeah.
I all of those things are pretty to me, and I've spent more time enjoying and paying attention to sunrises and sunsets and the stars and the moon the last 5 years than I ever have, right? So they represent me slowing down, me connecting with nature.
Mhm.
And then in the middle of my kitchen after visiting your house, I loved what you had in the center of your island so much that I was like, well, really let me have a space that's just sort of a daily reminder. As I mentioned, so far this month, it's really about trust in what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But to your point, right? Candles, crystals, mantras, malas, a picture of a family member, um, whatever it is that's important to you, right? And that could be a stick, a stone. It could really be, my nephew gives me all of these little, trinkets and crystals. And every once in a while, right, I'll include those too. And so I think it's about personalizing, right? It means something to you.
Mhm.
Um, and just a focus on what you're working on.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So, and then I made reference to the moon. So I don't know who doesn't want to howl at the moon, particularly. I know that the episode comes out on a different day, but we had a full moon here last night.
Mhm.
And it was absolutely beautiful. But
Yes.
for those of you working on feminine energy, right? I highly recommend working with the moon. There are so many ways you could go to a group. You can order books. I know I talked about the moonology cards. Um, but there are so many things you can make moon water. You could cleanse your crystals, right? You can set intentions or do releases. Um, but there are so many ways that you can really connect with the moon, right? If you hear to intuitively or it calls to you. I know you've really enjoyed working with the moon.
I do. I do. It's probably one of the tools that I feel most connected with.
Mm.
And it's really been a supportive guide on my healing journey. So I work with both the new moons and the full moons, and I love syncing that with of course, the astrology, right, that is coming with each of the
Mhm.
moons. So for new moon, right, we focus on calling things in, what I want to manifest, and the seeds that I want to plant going forward. And then for the full moon, I really work on releasing and letting go and what's feeling heavy, what's no longer serving me, what's ready to be cleared. And so I usually watch a video or something on YouTube to give me or
Mm.
read, right, and give a little bit more info on the moon, where it's gonna be, highlighted in my astrology chart. So it just gives me an idea of the area of life that's gonna be highlighted, right? It could be relationships, work, healing, boundaries, right? Any of those things. And then that really helps me, create the intention for what I'm gonna be working with. So, I'll usually write things out. Sometimes it's a list of intentions. Sometimes it's emotional energy that I'm ready to let go. Sometimes I write a letter. It just depends on what's, kind of what's going on. But I usually will burn an altar candle. So not necessarily on my altar, but an altar candle. And I'll put whatever I've written under the candle along with a selenite crystal to help absorb the energy. But I really just let that burn down safely, of course. And sometimes I will, again, it just kind of depends on my mood, but sometimes I'll burn the actual piece of paper after as well. I did that recently. I
Mm.
actually wrote a letter in the last eclipse, and I never had an intention of mailing this letter. And so once the candle burned down, when it got down to like the very end, I lit the letter on fire, but it was like 3 pages written, right? And I didn't tell my husband what I was doing. And I was in the kitchen, I was at the sink, but our fire alarm is very sensitive, and I unfortunately set the fire alarm off in the middle of my burning ceremony. So that was not very peaceful. So be careful, be cautious wherever, if you're burning anything. But yeah, it's one of the most powerful things I've done. You and I worked together, we working together for years. But one of the things that came through in a session where we worked together is you had actually recommended for me to work with my body, physical body, in the full moons and the new moons. And because I'm an indigo and I've absorbed so much junk throughout my lifetime that doesn't belong to me, I need multiple ways of releasing that energy. And working in the full moon and the new moon, I'm able to really connect into my body as well and ask, one thing that isn't ours that you're ready to release. So I've really focused on my physical body, and I really just use my hands and the candle, and I will just, depending on what I'm hearing, kind of scrape it out or brush it off and put all that energy into the candle so that it burns away. But it's been very powerful from an ancestral level. I think is probably the most powerful piece. Um, because again, a lot of the energy in my body wasn't fully mine, and so it was inherited, or passed down, and I really, have been able to release a lot, in those moons. And again, like Shelly said, we don't need anything really elaborate to start working with them. You can just have a regular journal and start writing some stuff down. When am I ready to release? Right? Lighting a candle, having an intention. You could even do a salt bath, right? Those are very powerful during a full moon, or a new moon. Like you talked about leaving your crystals out to cleanse them. And when we lived, in a house, although we do have one at the apartment, doing a fire pit is really fun. And listening to a meditation, and just kind of being under the full moon. I really enjoy that. Is there anything else that, you think our bright lights need to know about either moons or anything else that we've chatted about today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, just a couple notes, right? There's so many things that you can work on, right? We've sort of only touched the surface when we talk about cards or candles, chakras, auras, meridians, astrology, moon, altars, numerology. One of the things that you just said, I do want to make sure I touch on is a ritual, right?
Yeah.
The things that you're drawn to, whatever that looks like, whether that's, the moon, a particular day of the week, right? Or, astrology versus tarot cards or oracle cards, whatever it is that you're drawn to, right? That's what you should lean into. But create a ritual around it, right? So that you're, manifesting the things that you want to, right? That you're focused on being intentional about the things that you want. But if you tried to do them all, I don't know how you would sleep or
No,
work or do anything
that's
else, right?
exactly right.
So experience life, right? But bring in the pieces that really speak to you. And for me, there are different times I don't work with the moon all the time. I've
Mhm.
worked with it for a solid year to kind of see, the practice that people do with new moons and full moons. And frankly, while I think the moon is beautiful, it didn't call to me,
Yeah.
right? And fast forward like 2 years later, I was clearly hearing to work with the moon every day for 45 days. So I
Mm,
think it's about listening to your intuition, right?
yeah,
Going where you feel called to work at the time, right? So that you do get to experience some of these, but you don't have to obsess about, "Oh, I missed the full moon.
yeah,
Oh, I missed the new moon," or "What in the world is my aura doing? I can't see it," right? It's not so
yeah,
much, um, focused on all of these things, right? But being aware of them so that when you hear the words, intuitively, you have some idea of, "Oh, I know what that is. I know where to get more information on that, and I can dive deeper in this moment."
yeah,
So I love that you brought up a ritual because I do think creating rituals for yourself, whether it's about what kind of evening do I want to have or what kind of place emotionally do I need to get into, or I've been doing a lot of healing and I really need, a de-stress ritual, right? That is really important.
yeah. Agree. Agree. And I think too, there's, we've talked about and we've introduced so many things, and that's really part of the process, right? You're not gonna love every single thing, and that's not what we're doing this for. We're trying to bring as much out there that we've experienced, right, whether we're experts or not, to you to help you understand, what's gonna light you up, right? You're gonna hear something that one of us talk about, be like, "Oh, yeah, I definitely need to know more about that." And then there's other things that you're gonna be like, maybe not." And that's perfect, right? That's exactly what our intention is, and, yeah, you're not meant to focus on all the things all the time. Because to your point, you would never sleep. Alright, well, again, another beautiful conversation, and of course, we wanna hear all of your questions. If you need to know more information about any of these things, drop a comment, and we look forward to the next conversation. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Healers with Humor.
We hope that you found some laughs, a little light, and maybe even a few aha moments along the way today.
Remember, healing's a journey, not a destination, and you don't have to go it alone.
If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who could use a little healing and humor in their life.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on YouTube and any social media to stay connected with us.
Because we're definitely going to be sharing more wisdom, more laughs, and probably a little more oversharing next time.
Oh, you know it. Until then, take care of yourself, embrace the journey, and don't forget to laugh a little along the way.
All right, so see you next time on Healers with Humor.